Hey kids, this is Ivy. How you doing? This is gonna be kind of a different video. If you've been watching my channel, and you should be all the time, you know that 2 or 3 weeks ago I got to play my first session of All for One Regime Diabolique, where we're playing online. And there's four of us playing right now. We're going to rotate who is the game master, but to start off with, Runeslinger agreed to run the session. And we ended on a cliffhanger, so he has to run it next time as well. Then we have Null Inquisitor, and we have JDRD30, and we have myself playing Musketeers. So Anthony, group messaged us today and said, what do you think about making some recap videos? And we were talking, well, how do you want to do that? And the idea that we're going to make them individually, not really peek at the other people's videos, and just kind of compare notes to see, what the different people's perspective was on the game. Not just ours as players, but what was our character's perspective? And that sounded kind of cool. So I figured, what the heck? Let's go do that. So here we are doing it. So when the other guys post their videos, I'll link them to this one, and hopefully this isn't too boring, because you weren't involved in this game. But anyhow, the cool thing is I did write some things down, which is great because my memory isn't what it used to be. The bad news is my handwriting is terrible. So I'm wondering what this all says. It seemed to be working at the time. But my character is this young Philippe Moreau, and he's about 20 years old-ish. Seventh son of a horse farmer merchant, some kind of minor noble merchant type guy, and pretty much he has six brothers. Last of all these brothers. Really, his real shtick is he's really good with a sword. He's pretty athletic and whatnot, but he never really he's living under the shadow of all of his brothers, so he wants desperately to matter. That's a big motivator for him. And if he has any kind of character flaws, it's the fact that he's overly curious, and he's a little bit of a thrill seeker. So he's the kid that let the bull out, more than once, out of the pasture. So, and he's aware of those flaws and tries not to do these things as much as he feels like doing this, but fails sometimes. He comes with a lackey, as do all for one Regime Diabolique characters, and he comes with Jacques-Yves de la Mer. If my French accent is it's terrible. The guys playing this game, they speak French, for crying out loud. But he is kind of a washed-up family servant, pretty good, socially, and a little bit of investigative type skills, but he's a drunk when it comes right down to it, and that's his big flaws. If he drinks too much or too little, he's no good. So, what happens? How this game really starts off is Briscoe, which is JDRD30's character. He's in somebody else's house that he shouldn't be in. We've all woken up, and so Jean-Marie, which is Null Inquisitor's character, and myself, kind of trot over to where we kind of know that Briscoe is, and we're throwing some rocks at the window because we know it's time for us to go back to duty. And typically, as a musketeer, you have 3 days on and 3 days off. However, in real life, that means you have 3 to 7 days on and 1 day off. But yesterday was our day off, and so we came to and realized we have to go find our pal and go report to Monsieur de Treville. So I throw some rocks up and hit some of the chamber pots or whatnot residing on the windowsill, toying around with the idea of maybe throwing them a little harder and see if I can knock them in. However, Briscoe manages to come out of the window, lean out of the window, and ask us what the hell we want. We said, look, we've got to get going. And he realizes at this point, we don't realize how many women he's woken up with, but he's at somebody's house he shouldn't be, because just as he's coming down, it turns out this I believe her name was Josephine, but he was in the house of one of the cardinal's captains of the guard, Mr. Henri, last name unknown. He is not very happy, and he has this idea that somebody might have been with his wife while he was on duty all this time. In fact, I believe he starts to get this idea because Jean-Marie starts to insinuate that might be the case. So Briscoe comes down, the ladies' man that he is, and he's not wearing a shirt. Francois, decided it is a hot day, and so at this point Josephine he's buttoning a shirt up. He's got a shirt not on. But Josephine leans over and says, Briscoe, you are wearing my husband's shirt. Here, is trying to throw his shirt down. This is not working out very well. However, Briscoe is he's a silver-tongued bastard. It's what he is. Because he manages to pretty much, con, for lack of a better word, Henri, and we managed to get out of what looked like it was supposed to be a very volatile situation. So we trot over, to Monsieur de Treville's place, and I tell you what, Runsinger did a great job. Like really hats off. I mean, he just finished being sick. In fact, I think he was still a little sick that day. And we were all a little frustrated because we messed around for about a half hour, 45 minutes trying to see if we could get it to broadcast live, which it did not. So too bad. However, really good at just not describing this situation. Every time we were in a situation, including like Paris just waking up and the smells and the sounds and whatnot, not giving very many descriptors at all, but just putting just the right words in there that the scene came alive. And so, in my mind and hopefully in my character's mind, I knew exactly what was going on. At least I had a picture of what the sounds and smells of Paris waking up were like. I believe we were actually sitting there eating bread as we were waiting for Briscourt to come down, talking to the bread merchant. Anyhow, we end up talking to Monsieur de Treville. We walk in. There's a zillion musketeers around at that point, and he gives us this big job. And the idea is this young man Edward, another musketeer. I believe he's just kind of going missing at this point. They knew he went to a church, and then he just kind of vanished. I think he was supposed to give a message to his parents or somebody in the village of, let's see what the village name is, Stull. Something was supposed to go down, but it seemed like it just didn't quite go right. And so Monsieur de Treville wants us, one, to go find what's going on with this guy. Where is he? But two, we cannot let Athos, Porthos, Aramis, and D'Artagnan, the three musketeers, know what we're up to, because I think he's kind of like a special project of theirs. They all like him, and they're either injured or busy or something. I don't remember exactly what, but we cannot make a big deal of it. We have to keep this on the DL. Okay, this is working really fine for Jean-Marie and Briscourt. They are just, they're older, they're suave, they're debonair. Well, Briscourt is suave and debonair. Philippe just looks up to these guys because they're cool, they're badass when it comes right down to it. Philippe is really good with a sword. That's his shtick. He'll kill you. But Briscourt is just worldly and just knows how to talk to everybody. And Jean-Marie, on the other hand, as he's getting played, he's just kind of this taciturn, brooding fellow. But he's very, very stalwart. He's very, very focused. Philippe thinks he's crazy because he talks about werewolves and all this stuff, which just absolutely seems absurd. But he really looks up to these guys. But these guys are both, okay, this is our mission. We're good. In the meantime, Philippe is just, has this big crap-eating grin on his face at this point because he's going to do something important. That's all he wants to do is to be important. And Monsieur de Treville gives us a ton of cash, too. Here you go. This will help you, get down there fast and find out what's going on. And we don't get paid that often. Musketeers really don't get paid as much as they're supposed to get paid, just like they don't get as many days off as they're supposed to get days off. So, the only way that anybody can keep my ginormous smile from pretty much, ruining what's going on, because we're instantly asked, what was that about? What do you guys got going on? I believe Jean-Marie pulls out this bag of cash and says, hey, look, Treville's handing out cash. He's actually paying us. This is great. And so, boom, everybody else goes that way. And Philippe almost tries to go that way too because he just doesn't get that, that's not really happening. He's like, oh, we're going to get paid too. Not the brightest guy in the world at times. So they grab him, probably by both arms and march him out of there until he realizes what's going on. So we head on to this church to find out what is, if anybody knows anything, before we just head off towards this village, we're going to figure, well, let's do a little bit of recon and find out what's going on, to find out what happened to our brother, because, we're musketeers, all for one for all. We go to the church of Saint something or other, because my handwriting got very bad at that point. Little teeny hole in the wall, little family sort of church. We go in, kind of just really, the dark, kind of empty. He just gave us kind of the feel again, where it just really, I expect the door to be creaking and everything. But to me, it was just this dark little place. And bizarre stained glass windows, because you look at them and there's pictures with wolves on them. It's pretty freaky. And my curiosity, Philippe is really kind of, he wants to say something, but he doesn't want to just, be too impulsive, act too immature. And so we end up talking to this priest who is 957 years old. Looks that way, and he's the oldest dude I've ever seen. And so we decided, hey, Briscoe, here's our ticket in. Just go to confession. You've got to confess last night. There was a lot of ribbing going on and off and on during the game. So he goes in, and the priest whose name I do not remember, comes up, just little wizened old man, and says, I believe you're here for more than just confession. And so Jean Marie, goes on. That's right, Father. We must know what's happened to our brother. And the whole time, as Null Inquisitor is playing Jean Marie, he's focused. With these, almost like speaking like Captain Kirk. I thought it was great. I mean, both Francois and Sebastian did just phenomenal. Like, these characters came alive. Yeah, they were real. So he must know what's going on, and so the little old priest looks very sad, and kind of tells us that there's this big trap door in the floor, and you'll find out what you want not to know down there. Big giant iron ring, I believe, was on it. So at that point, I can't take it anymore. My curiosity's gotten the best of me. Philippe runs over there, yanks this thing. He's already walking down the stairs, and we find this room down there. Looks just horrific, and there's chains on the wall, and there's tick marks on the wall, and I believe there's scratches and what have you. We kind of rib Briscoe a little bit that maybe he kept one of his ex-wives or something down there at that point, But we know, so every the tick marks come every 28 days and all this kind of stuff, and nobody says the word werewolf, right? But at that point, Jean Marie turns to the priest and said, "Does this mean what I think it means?" It's just the whole Captain Kirk thing in my head is what it sounded like. He said, "Does this mean what I think it means, Father?" So and at that point, in my head, Philippe is just kind of figuring what the hell is going on. He doesn't really believe this, but doesn't want to seem too immature, too doesn't want to seem how he is. He wants to be cool at that point, and so the priest definitely kind of tells him, without saying the word werewolf, that this is Edward's brother, and if I'm not mistaken, his brother Albert was kept down there, and during the times he had the most trouble, they would sing the hymns especially loud. So you get this kind of vibe that this is some place that there's some kind of werewolf friendly, or look in the poor werewolf sort of church. It's out of character. I'm thinking this is it's kind of a cool little vibe that's going on with that. And somebody let him go. Albert's gone, and the priest I believe said Edward came in there for confession or something, or said he was going down to Stull. But anyhow, I think by the time Edward got there, Albert was already gone. So don't quote me on that because I could have the timeline wrong. But we also, at this point, believe get introduced to this guy Armand Martel. At least the story of him. We don't actually meet this guy, but some kind of villainous person, member of the Martel family down in Stull, which seems to be the local, just nasty people. Big, powerful family, and not very nice. So, and I believe this village of Stull too. It's just something that the king sends people to every once in a while. But at this point, we realize that we've got a problem, because based on the tick marks on the wall, if whatever is supposed to happen to this guy every 28 days is going to happen, and it is not just make believe as far as Philippe is concerned, it's going to happen tonight. The idea is that in 3 days normal worth of riding horses, we could get down there. However, we could just continue to get fresh mounts, really push it. We have enough cash that we can keep on buying horses and wherever we need to stop and get all the way down there. So we could push it, and it's going to be tough. And depending on how skilled you are at riding, you might be pretty beat up by the time you get there. Well, as it turns out, Philippe is pretty darn good at riding. So we have quite the long, arduous ride down there, in which Philippe, every once in a while, for just to prove a point, has his horse jump dramatically over everything, waiting for these two guys to catch up. And of course, he wants to impress them somehow because he respects them quite a bit. However, before we take that ride, I believe it's after we left the church, fate intervenes. Henri has figured out that perhaps Briscoe was messing around with his wife, and this is not going to go well. So he shows up with two men. I believe we're just leaving the church at this point. And two men members of the guard, who are only going to be referred to as boots and hair. Because one, his hair is perfect. He did not have a Chinese menu in his hand, but his hair was perfect. Instantly, Briscoe, who is, he's a fop and a dandy when it comes right down to it. Instantly should be checking this guy out. Like, what kind of threat's that? I believe that's kind of almost the little vibe that Anthony was kind of throwing off at that point. The other fellow, well, I recall him saying at some point, one of the Cardinals guards, one of these little bastards, saying that the Musketeers weren't even fit to shine boots, which pissed me off, and I remember this quite a bit. So, the battle gets joined, sort of. So I start fighting Boots and dispatch him relatively easily. If I didn't kill him outright, I think he split, bleeding pretty profusely, but I was able to just beat his blows aside and pretty much give him a sound thrashing. And he could these wounds could be lethal. Could have just killed the guy. Could have bled out, and serves him right. In fact, at the end, I ripped off a bit of him, put my handkerchief down, and threw him down on his blood bespattered boots, because I made sure the blood got in his boots and let him know he was going to have to clean them off himself because I wasn't good enough to do it. However, Jean-Marie, I believe, ends up sparring. Yeah, he spars with Henri, the captain. Takes one for Briscoe, and actually takes a wound. Which I thought was pretty impressive. That he still went for the ride, didn't want to get treated by his doctor. Let's go, because our brother Edward is in trouble. Pretty cool. Once again, very, very impressive to young Philippe. The best part of this entire scene, though, was the fact that Briscoe decides to start asking this guy about his hair and who does it, and successfully really gets this guy to talk about that. So while we are fighting a desperate and pitched battle, which of course young Philippe had no problem with, these two are off, on the side talking. Hey, so tell me about which barber do you? That is beautiful. What did they put in your hair? And determined they resolve to have a glass of wine together sometime. So do not fight, and that's very impressive too. Philippe just is not quite sure how the hell Briscoe does it, but he seems to have this incredible social knack. Fearless when it comes right down to it. Fearless without ever taking his sword out, which is something that Philippe, I find Philippe respecting. So we take this ride. We get there. We are pretty beat up. Actually, I'm not beat up at all because Philippe knows what he's doing. Briscoe, he's beat up at this point. His butt is sore, but as he said, I do not fight with my butt. We end up in town at night, and our the clatter of our horses' hooves on the cobblestones awakens the people in the local inn. They have us come in. It was a family, a young boy, young girl. Mother and father, and we see the odd 5-pointed stars, I believe, on over the fireplace, and some kind of just symbol. Not the idea. Jean-Marie talks to them. It's not the idea that they are cultists, but it's just some kind of protection from evil. When he mentions the Martel family, it definitely has an effect on these villagers. And there was one very touching moment when a young girl comes out and asks me, is it really true? I say, what? Philippe says, what? He goes, about the Musketeers, all for one. I said, yes, one for all. Pat her on the head on her little curls. And so we eat, and we resolve that we are going to go that night. And they tell us this is not a very good idea. But, before we go, the father makes that young little girl go out and get the box, and it comes back with the crosses. So they give each one of us I believe, a silver cross on a chain. And of course, Jean-Marie just adds this to his collection of crosses around his neck. I imagine he must look like Mr. T under his tunic. So we ride off. We ride off to the Martel estate. It is dark. The guards are sleeping at the gate. So they need to buy better guards. One of us is able to knock their two heads together like coconuts. At that point, make sure they do not wake up. They're sleeping or rather drunk. Either way. Taste a bit of their wine, get in, very easy to get in, open the gate, and we kind of sneak up and leave our horses behind and see what's going on. We can see a glow on the hillside. We finally come up to something that, to my recollection, is a little kind of Stonehenge-ish, little kind of circle of stones and what have you. And inside we see this bonfire, and we see people, circling around it. And kind of chanting in some ancient language, which Philippe has no clue what's going on. It's Greek. It's all Greek to Philippe, but I believe it was Greek. And so at this point, Jean Marie is, out of his head. Like, this is, these filthy cultists. There's one dude in the middle of the fire, not getting burned to death. At this point, Philippe just believes this has got to be some kind of trick. It's got to be all around him, but not really. Can't be really fire in there. Something's up. But this is kind of freaky. So at this point, Jean-Marie's whole plan at that point is, grab a couple muskets. I left mine on my horse. And he's got a little stick, and he's gonna shoot this guy in the middle of the fire. At that point, I figure I'm going to go around, because you can see Edward chained up to one of these rocks. And as I go around, more circle around, because these people are pretty distracted. Men, women, and children. I see not only Edward is chained up, because I figure, man, he's definitely chained. He's got, this. You need a key at this point. I don't believe I'm going to be able to cut this with my sword without breaking my sword, and be very ineffective, and probably make way too much noise. I see another, man chained up, younger, who looks like him, so probably his brother Albert, and another man, who looks like he'll be his father at that point. So we have 3 people chained up, and I believe the priest said there was some kind of a family curse. So there's an out of character chance that his father might be a loup-garou himself. Who knows? Not that Philippe believes in that sort of thing, but the atmosphere was really cool at that point. So another one of those moments that just you can't make up. So Briscoe just walks out. He's going to create a diversion, and as the people are running, circling around this fire, says, "Okay, well, first of all, you're singing out of key, and next thing you're doing it wrong. The choreography is wrong, and these people just stop. Like, what the hell is that? Children scatter." And he mentions the fact that the rest of the musketeers are coming. This bluff does not work terribly well. But the man in the middle of the fire, before he makes that bluff, the man in the middle of the fire just says, "Kill him!" So these people start to head towards him. He manages to give him this idea that the musketeers are coming. And then, at this point, Jean-Marie managed to shoot this guy, not once, but twice, with a musket, and the man still stands. Realize at this point, the young Philippe is like, well, we need to get this key. Briscoe is trying to use his rapier to try to get the key from the guy, and not being very effective. And Philippe is young, athletic. He knows what he's doing, and so he runs, because he's a thrill seeker too. I can push this guy out of the fire without a problem. And out of game, rolled terribly. In character, I'm thinking at that point, as I finally entered the bonfire, my natural body's instincts took over and tried to stop me. So my head of steam was kind of ruined. Maybe I tripped on a rock a little bit. But for whatever reason, what ends up happening is I end up bumping against this guy, and I am now in the fire. And I can tell you, it is hot. Sacre bleu. So this is the cliffhanger we leave it at this point. I'm in the fire. I should be able to jump right out. I've taken a fair amount of damage, because in All for One, you really, there's not a lot of hit points. Your health is pretty small. So I think at a 5 health, I've just taken 3 caustic damage, which doesn't heal very fast. So I'm not feeling particularly good. I think I'll be all right, but who knows what's going to go on? These people should be pretty easy to dispatch. You would think. Philippe thinks he scares a couple of them. Okay. Yeah. The rest of them ought to scatter. What about this guy in the middle of the fire? We really need to get that key. What's up with him? Because now Philippe is starting to wonder just what the hell is going on. Why didn't Jean-Marie tell me? Why wasn't he more forceful? But I enjoyed the session. Really looking forward to how it pans out. I have one big motivation not to die, because I guess the deal is, if a character should die in this session, or these 2 sessions, then that's the next person who's going to be the game master. And I don't want to be the game master yet. I feel like I want to watch the other guys, do at least one of the other guys do some of their stuff. Because I feel I don't want to say out of my league, but it's because that's not true. But I respect all the guys there, so I just I don't know a hell of a lot about Paris and the Musketeers. I'm trying to play catch up, but sure, I'll do fine. Anyhow, really don't want to die, for a variety of reasons. But I enjoyed, just enjoyed the DMing style, which was very, very the right words at the right time. Very, very small, descriptive. Not very many words, but really painted a picture. Really, really created a feel. And the other 2, Null Inquisitor and JDRD 30, made these characters come alive. And that was very, very enjoyable. They were very real people. And so that's what happened. At least that's my take on it. I like to hear the other guys' takes. And yeah, long video, but what the hell.